Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and this is my review of Doomsday Clock number 5. So this event has been running for some time, yet we're only 5 issues in. We can thank some pretty long-running delays at this point. I'm not really sure what DC plans to do about all of this. Doomsday Clock certainly seems like it's going to have some big effects in canon, and they deliberately jumped ahead by a full year relative to the rest of the DC comics, so that there'd be a bit of space in the canon between this event and the rest of DC canon. Yet we must be catching up at this point, and we're still way behind on Doomsday Clock. Meanwhile, the event itself I've been pretty in the middle with. Joey's mostly handled the review of this series so far, but I've made some comments here and there saying that I'm not the biggest fan of this story at the moment. That was true until this issue, which brought about a lot of interesting revelations to it, and ultimately, I'm certainly more optimistic about it. I'm certainly seeing the value in it and enjoying it a lot more. So events are stirring up at this point. Watchmen characters are robustly within the world of DC right now. We have Ozymandias reprimanding Batman, Rorschach having some very interesting interactions with Saturn Girl, who's awesome, and the comedian doing something. Superheroes are looked down upon, and Batman is horribly beaten down by a mob, angry and basically rioting in Gotham at this point. Just everything gets spiraling in this issue, and it's done with a strong sense of pacing that I really liked. Basically, about halfway through this comic, it just feels like everything's suddenly getting out of control. We jump to these riots, to Black Adam destroying terrorists and offering sanctuary to metahumans in Kahndaq. It's all big and bold, and all of a sudden I'm getting really excited about this. Seeing Ozymandias in action is pretty cool, and seeing him look down on our world is interesting. The issues I have with Doomsday Clock mostly lie in the fact that it's felt like the Watchmen characters have been watered down and are basically just a pale imitation of themselves transposed onto the DC universe. That's still very evident in this series, but I've kind of come to accept that Doomsday Clock is kind of just this dopey little story. It is fun seeing all of this, and once you kind of get past the adjustment of having to have Watchmen characters in this context, it's good. It's interesting and exciting, and I do enjoy it. I don't know if I guess I would recommend this series. It's better more often than it isn't. There's certain things done in the artwork that I find very tacky, yet I can't help but feel was the direction of Jeff Johns rather than the work of the actual artist. Because the artwork is phenomenal in this issue. It's just weird choices like everything going gray when Rorschach shows up that really feels out of place with, like a modern story that is smarter than that. It's supposed to be smarter. I wish this story had a better writer than Jeff Johns. I don't know how else to put it. DC has a ton of writers on hand and that they've worked with in the past that would have been better for this. Would have preferred Tom Taylor, or even someone like Scott Snyder in the mix rather than Jeff Johns. He's a good writer, but not in this context. Jeff Johns is better at doing crazy imagination things. Darkseid War, or The Blackest Night and all his work with the Green Lanterns. That stuff works for him, because he can go big and broad with awesome ideas. Watchmen needs to be a little more nuanced, and if it wants to get into politics, which I don't hate, it has to be smarter than this, especially if the politics is going to involve superheroes. Because they think there's a real good story in here about these people who have basically been terrorized by the adventures of superheroes all their lives and lashing out because of it. But it doesn't feel like it's quite there. It feels short of that. I can just easily imagine a different writer doing a much better job at this concept, and that becomes a frustrating aspect of this story. Nevertheless, there's a lot of big things going on in here, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I believe this story is 12 parts, and it's certainly living up to its name of Doomsday Clock. It feels like we're just ratcheting up to the end of the DC universe as we know it, or at least the forefront of some major changes. And I don't know how it's going to relate to the general world of DC at the moment, but I'm certainly curious and very interested in what DC and Jeff Johns has planned for the rest of the series. So yeah, in spite of my problems with it and my reluctance to accept Jeff Johns as the writer for this thing, this issue sold me. And if you gave up on Doomsday Clock like I was kind of heading towards personally, I would recommend you give it another chance, because this issue got me interested in things. I'm actually looking forward to what happens next. Doomsday Clock number 5 sold me, and that's awesome. So let me know what you guys think if you've had a chance to read this in the comment section below. And thanks for watching. If you like Comic Island, check out our Patreon page in the video description below. This was the winner of our Patreon poll this week. Each week our patrons have a say in the content we create. Finally, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.